Ask any practice administrator about their most difficult operational challenge of the year, and you will hear a consistent answer: hiring and retaining healthcare staff. You finally find someone, train them, and months later they leave. The data confirms this is the norm. According to the Medical Group Management Association's Practice Operations Report, front office support staff at medical practices hit a turnover rate of 40% in 2022. The back office fares no better. Business operations and billing support staff experienced a 33.3% turnover rate in the exact same period. That means roughly 1 in 3 billing or front desk hires exits within 12 months. This creates what administrators call the staffing spiral. A practice loses an experienced coordinator. They rush to hire a replacement. The replacement lacks deep experience, and as a result, medical claims begin getting denied at a higher rate. Now, your remaining staff are caught doing 2 jobs. They are actively chasing down claim denials while pulling the new hire up to speed. This cycle of recruiting, training, and covering operational gaps creates a recurring drag on practice efficiency. For many administrators, it means the staffing budget is leaking capital through turnover costs month after month. The financial damage of this cycle is usually hidden by a common practice management error: budgeting strictly by a base salary figure. An administrator looks at a $40,000 salary and models that as the total cost of the hire. This waterfall chart models the true loaded cost of an administrative employee. Drawing on MedVirtual cost analyses and Bureau of Labor Statistics data, we see that base salary is merely the starting point. Once you stack employer payroll taxes, health benefits, and paid time off, the true expense climbs sharply. Add the final hidden costs of onboarding and turnover replacement, and the true all-in annual cost of a single in-house medical administrative employee actually runs between $60,000 and $72,000. When you fully account for recruiting, training, and lost productivity, replacing that single employee costs an additional $30,000 to $50,000. Apply a 30 to 40% annual churn rate to that figure, and turnover becomes a recurring expense hiding in the background of your budget. Practice leaders are feeling the squeeze. In an MGMA stat poll of 427 medical group leaders, 53% identified finding qualified candidates as their single biggest staffing challenge, ranking it above pay, benefits, and retention. By treating base salary as the sole metric for hiring, independent medical practices are unknowingly undercalculating their administrative overhead by 50 to 80%. This map graphic visualizes the root of the problem: geographic limitation. Traditional hiring forces practices to rely on a small, localized radius of candidates, restricting access to specialized talent and forcing reliance on general administrative credentials. General administrative experience does not readily translate to healthcare. A candidate with standard office skills still needs to learn the complex difference between ABA billing and speech therapy CPT codes, or how to navigate highly specific payer authorization rules. That translates to severe operational drag. A generalist requires weeks of required electronic health record training, rigorous practice workflow coaching, and complete HIPAA compliance orientation before they can function independently. During this extensive ramp-up period, errors increase, practice morale drops, existing staff carry a heavier workload to compensate for the trainee's learning curve. This local talent pool is only going to shrink further. According to the American Hospital Association, the industry is facing a projected shortfall of 3.2 million healthcare workers by 2026. A generalist hire consumes hours of existing staff time while producing higher error rates, making them a net operational liability during their first several months of employment. The mathematical correction to the staffing spiral requires breaking the geographic barrier. Practices are shifting to specialized remote clinical staffing models to access dedicated, pre-trained professionals regardless of location. This requires a strict new credential standard. Instead of general-purpose agents, these specialized teams are built strictly with medical doctors, PharmDs, U.S. licensed registered nurses, and experienced healthcare administrators. This architecture, utilized by firms like Staffingly, differs from general staffing agencies. Rather than placing rotating, temporary candidates to fill a seat, specialized outsourcing firms build dedicated, permanent extensions of your practice. This workflow timeline maps out the rigorous pre-deployment protocol. Before their first active shift, every candidate completes EHR navigation training, workflow protocol certification, and HIPAA compliance orientation, hitting the day one readiness milestone fully prepared. Because they operate as dedicated team members, these remote workers continuously learn the specific nuances of your providers, the demographics of your patient base, and the exact requirements of your payer mix. Combining strict clinical credentials with practice-specific training prior to deployment effectively eliminates the multi-month training lag that slows local hiring. These credentialed remote teams do not work in isolation. They are supported by an integrated hybrid workflow, utilizing an AI verification layer that sits between clinical documentation and administrative tasks. In billing operations, artificial intelligence tools are deployed to preemptively scan every single medical claim before it is ever submitted to a payer. The AI specifically hunts for common denial triggers, catching modifier errors, identifying authorization gaps, and flagging coding mismatches in real time. This gauge visualization tracks the result of that automated scrubbing. The target operational accuracy for claim submissions under this hybrid system reaches 97 to 98%. Human clinical expertise handles the final fraction. The credentialed staff provide necessary oversight, manually resolving the complex edge cases that the automated systems flag for review. Offloading routine scheduling, verification, and documentation drafting to AI frees up dedicated professionals. They can focus entirely on the higher complexity clinical problem solving that requires genuine healthcare judgment. This system architecture diagram maps the enterprise-grade compliance required to safely embed remote workers into a clinic-secure ecosystem without exposing sensitive patient data. The security framework rests on three non-negotiable pillars: strict HIPAA compliance, SOC 2 Type 2 certification, and direct HITRUST alignment. Every individual engagement is protected by specific legal and technical safeguards. This includes signed business associate agreements and mandatory encrypted VPN connections for all remote access. To guarantee that these technical safeguards function as designed, the entire infrastructure undergoes mandatory annual third-party security audits to maintain data integrity. Practice leadership maintains complete visibility over this remote workforce. Weekly management dashboards continually track productivity rates, billing accuracy, and client satisfaction metrics. This centralized tracking and hardened security infrastructure provides the exact oversight and safety of an in-house employee, entirely removing the geographic constraints of a local hiring pool. Now, let us return to the financial data and carefully compare the underlying mathematics of the two staffing models side by side. This comparative matrix measures the baseline costs. Building an in-house administrative team with multi-specialty expertise typically runs $30 to $45 per hour per person, once fully loaded with benefits and overhead. Contrast that with Staffingly's dedicated professionals. Their starting rate is $8 to $10 per hour per full-time equivalent. That represents a roughly 70% cost reduction, completely eliminating benefits, PTO, and recurring recruiting fees. The model is proven at scale. Over 800 practices utilize this exact architecture, backed by verified 5-star Trustpilot reviews from U.S. practice administrators, praising the ability to find professionals with immediate, functional experience. The operational flexibility matches the financial efficiency. Engagements run month to month with no long-term contracts, allowing a practice to scale their team up or down with just 30 days' notice. If your practice is spending more time recruiting and training than delivering patient care, the math is clear. A 2-week, zero-risk pilot is the fastest way to prove this specialized remote model inside your actual workflow.